Hello. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Corey Pritchard. I'm located in Dayton, Ohio, and I am the head financial engineer with True Financial Engineering. And my goal for this video is to take this brief time to make sure that you can see a concept, I guess, or idea that I have. I just worked through some numbers, and I'm going to call it Storehouse Capitalization. Okay. So for most people, they really have no idea what it is that I'm talking about when I talk about the storehouse of wealth. And for me, when I first began this process, I really thought that I was promoting and marketing a life insurance policy, right? I am a life insurance agent. And for some people, actually, for most people, as soon as I say life insurance, then the person begins to almost clench their purse, right? And go into defense mode, and they begin to immediately tell me about all their life insurance, right? As soon as they find out that I'm licensed in life insurance, they feel like it's their obligation to tell me all the life insurance that they have because they don't need any of mine, right? And I have to laugh now, thinking back of many conversations where all I just said was, this is what I do, right? We're in conversation and the person says, so what do you do? All right. And I just mentioned I'm licensed in life insurance. That's the response I got from a number of people. So with that being said, I began to transition my conversation to make sure that I could help the individuals be able to have a more healthy, full conversation. And that was a part of me being able to identify myself as a true financial engineer. Why? Because there's so much more, right? Let's put the life insurance absolutely to the side, right? Put that out to the side. That has nothing to do with you in this conversation, right? It's a case where I am of service to individuals or offering my service to individuals. And the storehouse of wealth is a concept, right, that allows you to be able to have your heart to be changed to become the storehouse of wealth. That just blew my mind, right? So when I dealt with that recently to understand that the process is geared to help the individual's heart begin to change so that it becomes available, right? And that it transitions so that the wisdom that God wants to have in it, right? The skills, ability, everything that's necessary in order for things to happen the way that God wants to happen for the person is that this heart that they have now becomes God's storehouse. Isn't that crazy to think about, right? So for most of us, we don't even think about this. We don't realize that our manifestation, what is actually outwardly happening in our lives, is a reflection of what is already happening in our heart, right? Who we are in our heart. So if it's poverty, right, it hurts, but that's going to consistently be produced outwardly because that poverty is in my heart, right, or in that individual's heart. Now, the moment that we begin to address that, some of those things begin to change. For some people, it's immediately, right away, right? For some people, it takes a little bit of time. But the moment that the individual transitions from being poor, right, to broke, if that's necessary, right, to go to poor to broke, then things begin to change. And for broke people, not as a derogatory term, but by definition, it is an individual who is living on 100% or more of the income that they have, right? So whatever it is coming into their hands, then they just going to eat it, right? They're going to consume it. They're going to spend it all and use it all. For that individual, they may have a lot of stuff, right? A lot of cars, a lot of houses, right? A lot of credit cards, a lot of stuff, a lot of clothes, but really don't have anything to show for it. And how do we know that? If we begin to have a cash flow and net worth conversation, it begins to expose the reality of where we are, right? And it's not to condemn or hurt anyone, but it's for us to be able to make a healthy expectation and observation of ourselves financially so that we can truly get to a better place, right? So if we take things out of the way and even income out of the way and have a net worth and a cash flow conversation, what we find is that if we don't have anything left over at the end of the month, that's broke. Does that make sense? If I am actually not meeting obligations, right, based on the income that I have coming into my hand, if I don't have enough to meet those obligations and I have nothing left and I'm still owing people, that's broke, right? And it's a case where it doesn't matter if it's $1 million income or a $5,000 income. If there's nothing left, there's nothing left, right? And when we look at the net worth conversation, than it is liabilities minus your assets, or assets minus your liabilities, right? So there should be assets, things that have true value, right? There should be a value for those assets, and there should be a value for liabilities, the things, that you owe, what you owe. So for many of us, that's negative, right? I used to be at a negative net worth. I remember when the individual that shared that with me, he asked me that question, told me to calculate it, and don't beat myself up when I found out about it. I believe I was maybe a negative hundred and something $1,000. I believe is what it was. I'm like, man, this really is depressing, right? It's really messing me up. But the beauty is that from calculating from that one time, it allowed me to be able to make some decisions that changed things for me. So that I said, if nothing else, I got to get out of negative net worth, right? I may not have positive net worth, but I want to at least have positive net worth. So I'm thankful, for that wisdom that the gentleman shared with me. So when you're dealing with your net worth, you want to be very mindful that if you have a negative net worth or a very little net worth, then that shouldn't be something that should be acceptable to you. You work too hard, right? You're sacrificing too much time. You've been living for too long not to have a strong net worth, okay, and not to have a strong cash flow. Cash flow is what you can actually use to do something with. So if there's nothing left after you pay your bills, what are you working for, right? And that's where a lot of people, you have to go into debt. You have to keep borrowing because you want a new car, you want a new house, you want new clothes, and you want to take vacations. And it's a case where if you don't have cash flow, then it puts you in a position where you have to take more loans, and that's just the reality of it. So getting into these conversations, what I want you to understand is that it is the heart condition that produces this outward circumstance. That's the reality of it. And that could have come from something that was passed down from mom, dad, grandparents, right? That could have been something you're picking up, right? Or we picked up from television in our community about how we, deal with money in our lifestyle. But the reality is, whatever way it came in, and it is outwardly being manifested in our lives. So we know, okay, we may not like it, but we know. So what I'm saying is, for a person that maybe transitions from poor, which is having, little to no income, maybe you got more income, and maybe that person, now is broke, right, spending all of their money. I would say that a person can skip broke. You don't have to pass through broke in order to get to wealthy, right? If you want to, a person can absolutely go from poor to wealthy, right? And wealthy is having enough to be able to sustain yourself and your family, right? That's it, right? It may not be enough for everybody else, but it's enough to be able to sustain you and your family. And wealthy, it may not be a case where you have a strong cash flow. I'm going to be completely honest, right? Because wealth really is geared more towards net worth. So you could have a really strong net worth, a high net worth, but unless those assets are producing an income, the cash flow may not increase. And in that case, maybe there's a real strong high net worth, but a very small cash flow, right? And in that case, that's where you see people that looks like they're poor, right? Because they have to almost live like they're poor because they don't want to have to sell the asset in order to get the money. So they keep the asset and then live on this small cash flow. For other people, they do have a strong cash flow, got a strong cash flow and strong assets. And I believe that's the place where we all should make our first step to be, is to get to this place, get to a place where there's good cash flow, right? More than enough to pay for all of our expenses, with some left over to be able to save, right? To be able to invest, to be able to do the things that's on our heart to be able to do. We should be able to do that and continue to take possession of more assets, right? Increasing our net worth when the time comes, right? It can either produce an income, or we can sell it to be able to get more out of it than what we actually paid for, right? Beautiful thing. The next step is riches, right? Not the riches where I think that most of us think people are rich, right? Because most of the people that we see on television, on the internet, right, and promote as being rich, they are broke, right? High income, right? Very high income, but don't have a high net worth, right? And really don't have a high cash flow. A lot of income, but don't have cash flow left after all the expenses. The riches I'm talking about is the case where you have this growing uh, uh, cash flow, right? More than enough. It's continuing to grow. You have this growing assets, right? This asset column is continuing to grow. Little to no liabilities, right? Little to no liabilities. And it's not only enough to take care of you and your needs and your family and their needs, but you have so much, right, that's coming in cash flow wise, right, and asset wise, that you can support the needs of other people, right? You can take on other people's needs, other communities and other organizations' needs without it hurting you in any way, right? You can still support their needs, right, without sacrificing your family and yourself being able to have their needs met. That's what I call rich, right? So when we're dealing with this, what I want us to be able to have a healthy conversation about is, what are your goals? Right? What is it that you want to achieve? What do you want to happen for you and your legacy? All of us are building a legacy, whether we want to realize it or not. It could be a legacy of poverty, right? It could be a legacy of brokenness, right? It could be a legacy of sickness and disease. It could be a legacy of any of those things, or it could be a legacy of health and fitness. It could be a legacy of wealth and riches, right? It could be a legacy of wisdom, right? And service and all those types of things. So we all are building a legacy. The challenge is that we don't stop and really pause and think, what do I want that legacy to be? When it's all said and done, when I leave this place, what do I want the people to be able to have said about me? What do I want to leave behind as lasting fruits that remain, right? So we want to be able to decide those things now, so it will change and modify our behavior and our decisions, that it will change and modify what I'm investing my time and energy into. Okay. So with that being said, then when I'm dealing with this storehouse of wealth thing, then I have to realize is I'm dealing with the heart of people, right? So I want to make sure that I am presenting very clearly what you, if nothing else, from this video should be able to see my value as being, right? Now, it's not my value. I have to be very honest about that, but it is something where now, maybe for the first time ever. So if you've known me for a while, and maybe you've known me to be a decent person, right? You thought I was okay. Maybe you thought I said some cool things to say, from time to time, whatever it is. Or if you don't know me from anybody, then this video alone is going to be able to allow you to at least have this amount of value that you show for me, at least this amount. Okay. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here's what I want you to think about. Okay. Now, I'm not going to read all of this stuff that's at the top. Okay. You feel free to read if you choose to. What I want you to be able to think about is this. Okay. Whenever you think about an advertisement that you see on television, hear on radio, right, you view on the internet, whatever it is, someone is promoting some sort of product, right? Whatever the product is. Now we're talking about the financial market specifically, right? In this financial realm, the propaganda is that this account is going to change everything for you, right? So because you invest your money in this account, right, then your whole life is going to be different. You're going to go from poor to rich, boom, instantly, because of this product, right? Because this opportunity. And rarely does that happen. Am I saying that it never happens? No, I'm not saying that, but rarely does it happen. So here is the reality of what it is that we're dealing with. No matter what it is that we are looking to invest our money into, it is going to come down to me as what I'm calling as an asset driver. Okay, I'm calling an asset driver. So I want to be able to allow you to be able to enroll in my asset driving school, right? Now it's crazy to think about that. Why am I saying asset driving school? Why? Because I want to make sure that as I'm learning how to drive assets, right, more effectively and more efficiently, I'm teaching you and training you so you can drive your assets more efficiently and more effectively. Does that make sense? So if you think about it, right, they don't just give the keys to a plane to anybody. What normally has to happen? They have to go through school, and you have to be trained to be what? A pilot, right? To show that you can actually drive the plane before you get the key to the plane. Same thing with a major shipping vessel, right? You're not going to be the captain of any major shipping vessel if you haven't shown that you have gone to school and you have learned how to actually drive a ship. That don't make sense, right? You take a jockey that wants to run in the Kentucky Derby. They're just not going to let anybody jump on the back of a horse and compete in the Kentucky Derby. Listen, that's not the way it goes. It takes training to be able to drive correctly, right? To be able to compete. All of these people are competing, and their goal is to be successful. If nothing else, they at least got to be safe, right? So even if they're not competing, they say, I at least got to be able to get in this thing, go where I need to go to, and come back safe. So what I want to make sure that you understand is is that you've been given the responsibility. Anytime anything comes into your hand, is your responsibility. It's your responsibility to be able to steward it. Maybe that's not what you've been taught, but that's the reality of it. And sadly, here's the reality of what's going on. For many of us, the resources that we've been given responsibility for, they are hurting us. We're not allowing them to work for us. We're working for them, right? They're not slaves to us. We're slaves to them, right? And if we are not mindful of that relationship that we have with things, we're going to continue to be abused, right? And we will attempt to use those things to abuse other people. Okay. So with that being said, what I'm saying to you is that you should pause and consider what I'm saying. If it's a 401k, mutual fund, IRA, right? The newer thing is cryptocurrency, whatever the cryptocurrency is. Now they got all types and kinds of cryptocurrency that you could possibly buy, right? Even if it's gold, if it's silver, right? Whatever the thing is, right? It's a case where none of those things in themselves are going to make you rich, and they're not going to produce wealth. None of them by themselves. Here's the reality, okay, is that for a wealthy person, the person that with the correct heart, with the correct wisdom, they can actually use a jar, right? And I had to think about that. This is just like, whoa, what do you mean a jar? Yeah, a mason jar, right? A mason jar could be an account that they could use, a place to store up money, and that person could generate wealth, right? Because their mindset is correct. It doesn't matter where they're putting it at. That person is going to end up in a place of wealth and or riches at some point because they are using the resources correctly. Does that make sense? So if you are a person, and I have been that person, that is determined that you're going to consume, and no matter what, you're going to buy as much as you can, right? Consume and eat as much as you can, and life is driven based on entertainment alone, and that's it. Hey, no account is going to fix that. It's not going to be any account that's going to help you. Now, here's the reality, okay? The reality is that for an individual who has the right heart, has the right wisdom, right, has the right discipline, and everything is required in order for wealth to truly manifest, then everything becomes easier, much easier for that person. Okay. So here's where I'm saying to you, I'm going to show you right away how this value that I'm talking about is going to appear, it's going to produce itself and make itself manifest right away. So let's pay attention. Okay. So here's the reality. So any individual, I'm talking to you specifically, I don't know your age, okay? So whatever your age is, now we're going to use these different categories of people, but no matter what, whatever age that you are and whatever place that you find yourself in life, is that the reality is that if you want to store up money, save money, right, that it's going to take a certain amount of time in order to be able to do that, okay? So when we look at the accounts that are advertised to us, here's where we should be able to pause and be able to evaluate, is this something that truly is working as hard as it's advertised to work? Okay, so pay attention, follow me as I go through this. So in this scenario, we'll be looking at a 25-year-old. Okay, so say the 25-year-old decided that they wanted to achieve $1 million. If that was their goal, now they can have a goal of whatever it is, but if the 25-year-old had a goal and they said, I want to accumulate $1 million in cash by the age of 65, if that person were to do it on their own, what it will require from that person over the course of 40 years is $2,083.33, right? So if they took 2,800, or is it $2,083.33 per month, and put it anywhere, right? In a dumpster, right? In a jar, under the bed, right? In a hole in the ground, right? No matter where they put the money at, as long as it had the ability to accumulate without loss, then what would happen is by the age of 65, then that person would have $1 million in cash. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's what we have decided is, if I'm going to compare what is going on as far as the advertisement of some account that someone is coming to me with, now I say, okay, well, I know on my own, if I'm 25 years old, this is what it's going to require for me to reach that. Okay. So how much quicker are you able to help me get there? Or are you able to cut my time? Or are you able to help me do it with less money? So let's pay attention. This is what I'm saying. This is awesome. Okay. So for this individual, if they were going to do it on their own, then they're going to save $1 million, right? And it would take them 40 years. Pay attention. Now, if I am going to suggest a place that this person would invest and do it in the way that I would do it, now here's the thing I would do for that individual. I would put it into a place where it would take $232,000, just shy of just shy of $233,000 in order to reach that same $1 million by age 65. Isn't that crazy? So when I said to you, my value immediately is going to be manifested because I'm saying to you right now, right, as a matter of truth, that I can help a 25-year-old get to $1 million by age 65 using $700,000 less than what it would take them to do on their own. Does that make sense? Do you see how that value went straight through the roof, right? So now for that individual, I have at least $700,000 worth of value that I have to that individual just based on the wisdom that I have. Isn't that amazing? Okay. So this scenario works out for the same way for different age groups. I'm not going to go through all of those, but what I want you to see is that depending on the age, then you can see that the value immediately begins to manifest. Okay, so let's go down to a 55-year-old. And if you'd like to see this chart, I can send you a copy of it. But for a 55-year-old, they don't have 40 years to store up, right? That's the reality. So if the 55-year-old wants to reach a financial goal by the age of 65, right? They only have 10 years. So this is where you say, oh my goodness, right? Everybody will not be able to do it financially, right? The income will not be able to sustain them being able to save up this amount of money. So if the 55-year-old says, I got a late start, but I want to accumulate $1 million by the age of 65, then what it would require from them is saving $8,333. It'd be $1 million a year. I mean, $100,000 a year. So they'd have to store up and save $100,000 without loss, right? No lost years, not losing one penny. But if they can do that, saving $100,000 a year or $8,333 per month, then they can reach $1 million by age 65. Isn't that exciting? Sort of, right? Not as exciting if you're the person trying to pay this amount of money every single month, every single year in order to reach $1 million. Okay. But in this scenario, I'm saying for this individual, why don't you consider us going into a partnership, right? So if you go about it your own, then it's going to take you that amount of money to get to your goal. If we create a partnership, then maybe we can help you get there with less money. Okay. That's what I'm saying. So in this scenario, instead of it taking $1 million in order to be able to create or store up $1 million, I'm saying to that individual, we could do it with $836,000, just short of $837,000, which is still a lot of money, right? But the reality is that the difference is what my value becomes right from day one. So I'm at least $200,000 of value for that individual just based on my wisdom, right? Because they would have done it on their own and had to take $1 million. I'm saying I can save you at least $200,000, over $200,000 by being able to have a conversation with me, right? Really close to $260,000, right? For this individual. So when we're looking at this concept, understanding that when you are dealing with people who are coming and peddling and promoting things, really figure out, listen, I know that if I needed to, I could store up $250,000. Just divide it out and you can see how much you need to save and how long it would take you. So the question you asked is for this individual, first of all, is it safe, right? Are there going to be potential of down years and losses, right? Is it going to be a case where we lose $100,000? It's going to take me 2 to 3 years to be able to make my $100,000 back, to be able to catch up, right? All those types of things. You want to be able to have a very healthy, honest conversation to say, is this account going to help me reach my goal faster, right? So maybe you say you're age 25 and you're like, Corey, I don't want to wait till I'm age 65 to have $1 million. Can you show me how we can do it in half the time, right? Instead of doing it in 40 years, is it possible that we could get there in 20 years? Absolutely, right? Doesn't that show again the value where I can show you how you can actually reach the same goal in half the amount of time? Yeah, absolutely, right? So when you're dealing with the people that you're talking about, you want to be able to ask those questions, because what happens is that we have been misled in some cases, where when we look at the gaining or increasing account value at the end of the year, at the end of 10 years, right, at the end of 20 years, and then based on so-called retirement age, is that a lot of that money is the money I'm putting into it, right? And then you look at, man, had I taken the amount of money that I have actually put in myself, calculated that, then how much money did you really help me make, right? Did you really help me, right? Because I could have got to the same goal no matter what, just because I'm saving. So you want to make sure that you're making that difference. So here's the last thing I will end with, okay, just by saying this. When I'm sharing, this reality with you, then it's a case where you're saying, you're like, man, I never really thought about it that way. So figure out what your financial goal is, figure out where you're trying to reach, and more importantly, what do you want it to do? Like, why do you want to get to that certain financial target? Like, what is it that you want to happen when you accumulate those resources? So when you're looking at it, then you are able to really say, okay, man, I can really make a plan, and I know that I can get to that goal, right? I don't need to rely on any so-called financial expert. I don't need to be, hoping and wishing for the right account to help me get there. No, listen, you can sit down on paper and you can map out and say, I know that I can reach this financial goal. I know that I can reach it. This is the amount it would take, right? Of time it would take. This is the amount of money it would take. And I know that I can reach it. So knowing that you can do that is wonderful. Okay. Knowing that you have, at least this opportunity, that I'm giving you an invitation where I'm saying to you that you can do it in less time, right? If that's what your goal is, but we could definitely do it using less money. So if you want to get to a certain financial goal, then we can actually do it with a fraction of the money, right? Maybe half the money or less, depending on how much time that you have, right? That to know that, right? I'm saying that is exactly what I'm able to do for you if that's what you want. But if it were a case, okay, if it were a case that were the best that I could offer to you, that would be pretty good, right? And that's what, to be honest with you, that up until the last, few years ago, then that was great, right, for me. But it never was good enough. It never felt like it satisfied me as far as being able to truly be able to add value to someone's life. So here's the reality. Here's the reality is that if you understand that you can take 40 years to accumulate $1 million, or you can do it a different way and maybe cut that down into maybe a third of that, right? Now, how does that happen? You're saying, hold up, Corey. Now, you're telling me that it's possible that if I'm age 55, that you're telling me that we could actually do that in possibly 5 or 6 years. Absolutely. Right. So, Corey, hold on. You're telling me that if I'm age 25 or 35 or 45, that we can do that in maybe 10 years? Yeah, I really do believe that. Now, it's not going to happen with a passive account, right? So, whenever you deal with the difference between passive investing and active investing, most people never made the difference. Okay. And I'm going to make sure you know the clear difference. If it is a case where you're taking your money and you're leaving it somewhere else and they're going to pay you a predictable interest, okay, or a fee, that's passive investing. So what's going to happen is that this institution or this program or this person is going to take your money and go make money. They're going to make as much money as they can in the time frame that you're giving it to them, right? And they're going to pay you only that amount back. It's not a true partnership, okay? So that is in a bank product, right? Even buying a stock product, right? Buying a share of a company, right? Any of those things, all of those things are passive investing, right? You're saying, hey, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to do anything with it. I don't want to have to increase my skills. I just want to give you the money and you make sure that you pay me my predictable interest rate, right? So in that case, maybe you can have your money double, maybe 10 years, right? Maybe, right? And I mean, this is very, very like exciting. If by chance it could possibly happen, right? So you'd have to be able to get 7% interest in order to have a chance for your money to double in 10 years. And it would take 10 years, right, in order for that to happen. And you'd have to consistently be able to get that interest rate. So what I'm saying to you is that if you would consider using these resources as active investment resources, I'm telling you, you can cut the cost down drastically, and you can cut the time down drastically. Okay. So that's what I'm saying to you about looking at a storehouse of wealth mindset, right? A totally different view of the way that you normally, or most people are normally used to dealing with money. Hey, we're saying, hold up. Instead of me trying to come up with this so-called nest egg of $1 million so that I can draw an income from that, right? A monthly income is a passive income, so I don't have to work. Well, you mean to tell me that it's possible that I could save a fraction of that amount of money and actively invest that money, and I don't have to worry about having this huge, large nest egg for me to retire on? I'm more focused on my monthly cash flow. Absolutely. Now think about it. For most people, we've been told that you work 40 years to be able to retire on a monthly income, and that's what it's geared towards. Whether it's Social Security, pension income, right, or if it's money that you're taking from an investment, then the reality is we've been told it takes you. It's going to require 40 years of your time, right, in order for you to retire on $5,000 a month, right, or $4,000 a month, right? For most people, it's not going to be much more than that. Even if it was $10,000 a month, someone telling you that you have to work 40 years in order to get $10,000 a month. Now that's ridiculous. Why? Because if the goal is to get to a monthly income, then why don't we start there in the beginning instead of the end? Right? So our whole focus should be geared towards making sure that we have active investments that allow us to be able to increase and grow our monthly or annual income. Does that make sense? Okay. So maybe it doesn't take $250,000. Maybe it's $100,000. Maybe it's $50,000 if that money is being actively invested. When I say actively invested, it means buying something low, right, with the intention of being able to sell it for a higher amount sometime in the future, right? And I'm saying it doesn't make sense for you to do that if you're not getting at least one fold. If you're not getting at least 100% return on your investment, I don't really think it's worth the time. So what if it took you 12 months, right, or 6 months to find the right project where you got one fold, right? Now, here's the thing. Next year, you have that experience and you should have continued to grow in wisdom. So maybe you could do that instead of doing it one time in 12 months. Maybe you did that 2 times in 12 months, right? Or maybe if it took you 6 months to do it, maybe you were able to do that 2 times in 6 months or 3 times in 6 months. So you see how that happens, right? And it's a beautiful thing to understand that the mindset and approach and the goals and everything begin to change. And I'm saying, oh my goodness. So my focus is not on trying to accumulate $1 million. No, what I want to make sure my first target should be is to make sure that I have enough cash flow to be able to meet my expenses, right? Because for most people, isn't that what retirement is? Right? When as soon as they get to the amount where they say they're looking, at the human resource person, they go to their meeting and they're looking at the amount of money that the person says they're going to be able to retire on. They're trying to say, okay, well, if I take this income, will I be able to keep and maintain my current lifestyle? Isn't that what that normally is based on? If they're able to maintain the current lifestyle, right, without having to show up to work every single day, then the person is considered to be what? Retired, right? What I'm saying to you is if you know that, you already know what your expenses are, right? You can even increase that for projected expenses and the projected lifestyle that you would like to have. Now your new goal should be, how do I make sure that my goal is to have the resources, the active investment, the things that I'm doing is to increase my cash flow to the point where now the money that I'm receiving from my active / passive investing is now it will make sure that my lifestyle is maintained. Does that make sense? That I'm able to have this lifestyle so that if I choose to show up and trade my hours for dollars, great. Keep going, right? Keep doing it. It's just going to keep bringing seed into your hand that you have even more money to be able to invest with. But if you decide that whatever it is that you're doing is not the best use of your time and you like to invest your time in some other direction, now you have these projects that are making sure that you have the monthly income that you need so that you can so-called retire. Does that make sense? Now, what I'm saying is not to retire into nothing. That don't make sense. Don't retire into nothing. I'm suggesting that you consider retiring into purpose full time. So whatever it is that you have on your heart that you're supposed to be doing for the benefit of other people full time, then now you're able to do that without money constraint, without thinking every single day about the paycheck and all those types of things, right? Now you're focused on doing that full time. And what I'm saying to you is, I would absolutely probably put a guarantee. I'll say probably, but I'm going to put just about a guarantee on it that whatever is truly on your heart, and if it is truly a passion, if you're able to divulge your fullness and the fullness of yourself in it, that you're going to do far better at that than you'll do at anything else. Okay. But it's a point of getting to that place, right? So this is about the transitional period, the process of transitioning into that life of purpose. Okay. So again, what I'm saying to you is, if you are looking to be able to get into that place, consider allowing us to be able to help. Consider working with us to be able to work on your heart, right? Not selling you anything. I don't have any products to try to sell a person that doesn't have the right heart. It's not going to do them any good, right? But we can engage in the process to help you become a better asset driver, right? To be able to develop the qualities that are necessary in order for you to be wise, right? To be wealthy, to be rich. Getting those qualities to be able to be more mindful of the resources coming into our hands, so that we're using them more correctly, so that it's more efficient and more effective, right? So maybe you have a $50,000 income, right? Maybe it's a case where you don't need to have a drastic increase in income. Maybe you could, but maybe it's a case where we're just not using that $50,000 to its maximum optimal benefit, right? Maybe we can get more out of it, right? So if you're getting whatever amount of money, maybe we should start by getting more out of what you currently have. Does that make sense? Okay. So with that being said, again, this is Corey with True Financial Engineering. I'm excited about being able to find those individuals. This is not for everybody. I don't have enough time. It's not enough hours in a day to work with everybody. What I'm looking for are individuals who have a desire to retire into purpose full time. I'm looking for individuals who want to be able to have this wealth manifest as quickly as possible in their lives, right? For the benefit of themselves, but for the benefit of other people, to be able to go into service to help other people and to be a better use, right, to the community and other people. I'm looking for people that want riches, right? And not in a selfish way to say, I want to be able to just do it for me, to say, no, hey, I realize that there's so much on my heart that I would like to be able to do. And if I have more resources, I will be able to do that. I'm looking for those individuals. I'm looking for people who either are already disciplined and show discipline, or who are willing and ready to develop being disciplined, right? Having integrity, right? Being able to be left alone, but being able to be trusted with your own money and being trusted in with your own self, right? To be able to keep your own promises. For people that have the correct heart, that they want to help other people, right? People who can do things that other people are not willing to be able to do consistently, right? So I'm looking for you, right? If you're looking for somebody to help you and assist you in getting to those places and become a better asset driver, so that your net worth continues to grow, cash flow continues to grow, right? You get into a place where the passive combination of active investing, it meets or exceeds your expenses, so that you can begin to transition into working full time in your purpose. That's me, right? So I can encourage you to go to truefinancialengineering.com. You can also send an email to storehouseofwealth@gmail.com. Again, that's storehouseofwealth@gmail.com. Send me an email, right? You'll receive an auto response, right? We can set up something. You can find out more of what's going on. Go to the website, watch some videos. Maybe this isn't for you, right? Maybe I'm not for you, right? But maybe I am, right? Maybe this is for you. So that's for you to determine. But my goal is to help you with that. So I look forward to helping you to retire into God's unique purpose for you and your legacy. Have a great day.